What up, world? It's a big fact show. It's your boy Mark Waldo Ward. After we had an episode with Bennie Hertz, I got a lot of comments from people that telling me about questions I should have asked him, and he was kind enough to join me to address one of them. So, how you doing today, man?
Man, I'm Gucci, man, as always, man. Just putting in work. Glad to be on again for a minute.
Man, glad to have you and glad to hear it. So the main thing I got was people were asking me what what do they need to know about setting up a recording studio in their home? Like, what's the biggest mistakes they make? What where
I'm
should they
gonna.
begin? Really?
Where should they begin? I believe mic quality and mic placement is key. One of the things that a lot of people struggle to do when they are setting up a studio, they think that they can just record anywhere. People will record in an open room, and of course, we all know that when you're in a big recording studio, you can see people recording in a booth, or they may even record in the control room, but they got to understand that those rooms are acoustically treated for certain purposes, and your home isn't. So, number one, if you don't have an acoustically treated room, you got to make sure that you try to find some way to control vocals, because most of the time, that's the average hip hop artist. They're not recording anything live except for their vocals. So they've got to be able to control the vocal in the room and control the outside space. The second thing is the mic and the preamp. You want to get you a decent quality mic, and you want to start out with at least a good quality mic preamp and know how to work that thing the right way.
Is a Shure Dynamic a good mic to start out with?
Um, I've seen people use it. I'm not a fan of it for recording. I think for entry level mics, I think there's a lot of good entry level mics for recording that beat that.
Got you.
Um, AKG makes some good entry level mics. I personally use a lot of Slate products, so I have the Slate ML1 and the Slate ML1 Vintage. Um, they were running a deal on it for like 600, I think, for the ML1. Just these last couple of weeks, it may still be on sale. And it comes with mic emulation software, which is pretty cool. So if you can control the dynamics in your room and you have that, and it comes with the software, you can have your mic sound like a Sony mic. You can have your mic sound very similar to a Newman. They have software that does that type of emulation, and they're pretty close. I mean, you got to think, you're spending 1,000, 700 to $1,000
So is
to
this,
get.
are you putting in numbers to get it like the Sony mic, or is this actually like something like presets you can select? Because
It's a
I
preset you can select.
okay, because a lot of people get intimidated with the amount of knowledge you have to have on the what levels for everything and what they correspond to. There's a lot of information on that board.
Oh yeah, there is. But I mean, you can look it up. You can look at they've got a lot of what they call mic shootouts, where you can go online straight on YouTube and you can look at um, the Slate um, ML1 mic versus the Sony 800 series. You know what I mean? And on YouTube, you may not get a full spectrum because we know audio is compressed, but you can see they're so close that it's definitely worth the entry level fee of getting into the Slate.
Do you have any advice on how close or far somebody should be to the mic, especially in relation to, let's say, if they're rapping loud and aggressively as opposed to they're being melodic and a little softer in tone?
Well, sometimes I like to say 6 inches, but you may want to. It depends on the individual, right? So part of that is having a good engineer and being able to do gain staging, which is to do a couple of mic checks, make sure your gain is correct, so that your input sounds good and solid when it's coming in. I always tell people garbage in, garbage out. So if you're in a room that really doesn't have a lot of control for the vocal, and you're too far or the vocal is too light and you try to turn it up, then you're going to have to use other software like gates in order to eliminate some of that extra noise that you're doing from trying to turn up the signal.
If you went to a sorority party, which we will assume that everyone has a reasonable level of intelligence, and and at said party, everyone's about three or four beverages into the evening, and a a young lady or a woman approached you and asked you to, how important is an engineer to the recording process, And obviously you're not going to belabor the point because there's been some beverages consumed. It's a party, but you do want. She's intelligent. You can get it across to her. Well, how would you sum it up?
It's key. It's key. It can make the difference between an all right recording and a good recording. It can make the difference in a good recording and a great recording. I mean, it's just that simple.
When they say that people create pop stars through like computers and stuff, I would take that to mean an engineer did that.
I really hate that terminology because I work in the business.
Which terminology?
Where you made somebody over a computer. So no one's made anybody over a computer.
Made their how about made their vocals appealing as opposed to, because
sure.
it takes hard work to do all aspects of celebrity and music.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, everybody has doctoring to their vocals to some extent. You know what I'm saying?
If someone there wouldn't be an engineer if there wasn't some vocal doctoring. Because I mean, if you adjust it to the guitar, you doctored the vocal.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, say you get someone, and I'll use a Beyonce, right? And I'm just pulling a name out the air. You mean to tell me that you don't think someone has put some type of vocal editing software to maybe get something that may have been out of tune a little tighter in tune, or to add more vibrato and stretch to it? It happens. That's the engineer's job. If he hears a slight imperfection in the recording process, his job is to go in there and make it sound the way it needs to sound.
Right.
That's his job.
All right, I'm gonna throw a curveball at you. What advice would you give a new engineer who has reached the level that he's a professional? He's not assisting someone. He's doing it by himself, and he's getting paid for his time, dealing with a client who has impossible to meet demands. Because I'm sure you encountered somebody who wanted you to make him do something that make something happen that just was not going to happen.
I think that there's a way that you can say, hey, listen, I understand this is the way you want to sound, but in order to get you to sound this way, I need you to do it like this. And I've done that before. I've said, hey, so I know you have this idea of what it's supposed to sound like, and I want to try to get you there. But if you can't do it this way or get close to doing it this way, then I may not be the engineer for you. You may need to find someone else that may be more skilled, because I can't take this and make it that.
So you don't tell them that it's not possible. You just say it's not possible for you to do it. That's diplomatic.
I mean, I hate to tell people, you can't shine shit, because and don't get me wrong, I've had people that are vocalists or want to be very good vocalists, and they'll come to me and record, and I've had them come in and I'm like, so in order for me to get you to do it, to sound a certain way, I need you to sing it a certain way. And I deal with more hip hop and soulful R&B than I do with, I don't want to say modern R&B, but there's a lot of modern R&B where people get away with singing subpar. And if you come from an old school, you had to be able to sing. You know what I mean? Not sing, but you had to be able to sing.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So, and even some of those people may have some small vocal imperfections, but it sounded very natural, to where you may have someone else that really needs a vocal coach. You know what I mean? In the country music world, a lot of people, and I know I'm getting a little off topic, but lot of times,
I love it.
A lot of times in the hip hop and R&B genre that we deal in, we have a dollar and a dream. We start recording with somebody and we get it to sound somewhat good. Then when you get to that next level, when they're getting the exposure and they may get the situation where they get a deal, they don't realize that when they get signed, a lot of times those people will make them, hey, you need a vocal coach. And when you look at country music, a lot of entry level stars that come into country music, they got these girls and sons that go to Nashville and they have these big dreams. They go there with a budget and they go there with a dream. And you know what? They pay for guitar lessons. They pay for singing lessons. They pay for all this stuff, because the standard is so high to be able to sing there, to where I think the entry level point for people to get into the hip hop and R&B on the urban side, I think the entry level point is a little skewed, so to speak. I don't
Do you
like
think
to
that
say
leads to people expecting more from an engineer when in reality they should spend more time on honing their craft?
absolutely, absolutely. I think that's where it starts. If you
Do
it
do crook
separates
do
good and
crooked
great.
people lead them on so they can book them for more hours?
I don't want to know if I want to say crooked, right? Because I'll be honest with you. If I'm running a session and I can tell someone, well, I think it may need this, but some people don't want my direction. Some people just want me to track it. You know what I mean? And when they want me to track it, I'll say, okay, I'm tracking it. And they may say, how does that sound? I'm like, what do you think?
I mean, if you
Because
guys shovel and somebody wants to pay you to dig, who are you to tell them that they can't dig, right?
exactly, so I think all that is based on relationship. You know, my job as an engineer is not to be a fan of the record.
So
My job is to get it to sound a certain way. The sound, and I say this all the time, my job is to make your record sound commercially competitive.
speaking of sound a certain way and your job, I was listening to your artist, Miss Nina Chanel, and forgive me for not remembering the name of the song, but it was a 2018 single. Sig, help me out here,
Single.
man. There you go. On a single on Spotify, as at least listed as such, and it was a very aggressive fight song, basically.
Was it Gotta Get It?
Something like that. It's like take a girl outside, or yeah. How involved were you with it, with the direction of the subject of the music?
With Nina, I'll be honest with you. I lit her, and let me not say I lit her. I managed her. I don't. She's not signed to me as like you're my artist. You're signed to my label. I manage her, so my job is to help her shape and develop her sound in the studio, and I give her concepts and ideas. But a lot of times she'll come to me with the idea, and my job is to, hey, maybe say it like this, or do you have an idea of how you hear yourself in your head? And we'll lay it down. And sometimes we may listen to something and say, hey, you know what? That wasn't it. Let's come back and try it this way.
But I mean, it went beyond like just the aggressive shit talking. Like it actually kind of conveyed. You know how you know when something's gonna go down and you feel it in the air. Like something in that song conveyed that actual feeling.
Maybe she was feeling some kind of way. Was it hardest bitch in the city?
Man,
Yeah, hardest.
I'll tell you in 2 seconds flat, because I've been listening to Nina Chanel all day on Spotify. Y'all check her out, Nina Chanel, not the artist, the rapper. And you can find her on Spotify, NINA space CHANEL. And she can definitely spit. It's called On Site.
So you know what? That's a different record. I didn't have anything to do with that record.
Yeah.
But that record is about a real situation, and I know about that. I know about that one. She had just went through a little something.
It certainly came off as authentic. So as a listener, what was your opinion?
Oh, I mean, I like the record. You know what I'm saying? It was it, and by the time I heard that record and everything, to me, it was a little dated. You know what I'm saying? But I don't knock how a person feels. Sometimes you got to get that off your chest, and sometimes the studio is the best place to get it off your chest. But she may have got it off her chest another way too. So
Right.
she might have told him, "You can meet me outside," and really, you can meet me outside.
What's the most spiritual moment you've ever had associated with music?
Ooh. So a lot of people don't know this about me, but I used to sing in choir when I was in school.
So that mean you could sing, because the worst person that could sing in choir back then could sing, right?
I could sing.
And now you modest.
Well, it's not that I'm modest. It's just that Newports and weed over 30 plus years and not using that gift anymore in that capacity. I don't want to say I lose it, but I don't sing near as well as I did when I was a kid.
Right. I don't jump near as well as I did when I was a kid, but I feel you, man.
Do you still use it though? That's the thing, right?
Yeah. Not really.
You know, um, so I sang in choir. I sang in school choir and in church choir. And when I was in church choir, I was asked to do a solo, and that was like my first solo performance that I can recall. That I was like not a part of a collective of people doing a solo part. It was like my song, leading the song, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
And I don't know if you want to say I caught the Holy Ghost or whatever you want to call it, you know what I'm saying? But I don't know, I don't know if it was because I was a kid and nervous energy, but something came over me. And when I was singing, it was just like, I could tell it was bigger than me. You know what I mean? It was bigger than me as far as the vocal and
Did you feel
the
outside of
reaction.
yourself? Like
Yeah,
outside of your physical self?
yeah. And I know music will do that to people.
Have you ever had anything similar recorded music?
Actually, I have, but I don't think it was something that was spiritual.
Let's say moving.
Very moving, right? There's a guy, and this has actually happened to me on a couple of occasions, right? I think underground wise, people that have never made it, I think I've worked with some of the best people to do it. And that's me not sugarcoating nothing. I've listened to hip hop since hip hop existed, since it was called hip hop, rap music, whatever you want to call it, right? And through certain turmoil, certain people's life may have taken a different way. It's kind of like the guy that you may have seen on the basketball court that was better than Jordan and was better than anybody that you saw in the NBA.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You're like, man, how is this dude not here?
Yeah. I'm from PG County. I know about it. Yeah. All them dudes in the NBA from PG County, there was some cats better than them. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's some guys I've had here right in my little room. And even when I had a much smaller studio, 12, 13 years ago, rapping in the booth. And it's like I took my headphones on. I'm like, where the fuck? How did he even think to say shit like that? It was just mind blowing. And I consider myself an intelligent cat. I'm very wordy. I'm witty,
loquacious.
Yeah. And I heard this shit and I was just like, man, what the fuck? You know what I mean? It's like I took my headphones on and just had to enjoy the moment instead of thinking about tracking it. I was just like, God damn. You know what I'm saying? To where I got out of being the engineer and became a fan.
In some ways, that's a beautiful thing about music, though, because sometimes, if you're around it, there's moments that just only exist in those moments that are as good as the moments that exist forever.
Yeah. And
I mean, I guess that's sad too, but I don't know. I find it tragically beautiful or beautifully tragic.
Yeah.
People don't realize how much of a war of attrition a career in music is. It's not as glamorous as they think. I mean, even all the people who are like so-called overnight sensations, it's overnight after doing that shit for 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, bro, I know people that's been in the game for years and years and years and years, and they just getting they shine and they almost 40.
Right.
You know what I mean? Especially on the producer engineer side.
Yeah.
They finally track the right record, or they finally get a co-publishing, a co-pub deal, or they get a placement with someone because they've been in the circle for long enough to where someone trusts them and that record becomes it is out of here. And the next thing you know, oh, he's booked all the time. I've seen it happen.
Are there those that are 50 who it never happened for, who worked just as hard but never got the right placement?
Yeah, but I think that comes with some of the fame. You know what I mean? There's people that are, 50 and make a great living doing what they do without the fame that comes along with it.
Right.
So I think, there's a balance on one side versus the other. I mean, I know some engineers that are close to my age, and I'm close to 50. And and these guys are like beasts. And had I not been in the engineer community, I would have never heard of them.
Okay.
But these guys are, people that have worked with the Michael Jacksons and the Quincy's and the Princes, and these guys have, multi-million-dollar studios, and they've got the plaques, but you wouldn't know who they are.
Who is considered the most famous engineer? Is there somebody?
Dave Pensado.
Dave Pensado?
Pensado.
I'm not hip to him. What's he known
He's,
for?
He's the GOAT.
Yeah.
So he's
like, I'm not talking about the best. I'm talking about the famous. Like is
famous? In hip hop, man, it's kind of hard, right? But I'm a West Coast cat. You know what I'm saying? So, Dre is a beast.
Yeah, no, that's a no-brainer.
Dr. Dre, you know what I mean? As far as
he sure mixed them Daz beats down real good back in the day, didn't he?
Yeah, but I always tell people, it's like I think he understands sonics better than a lot of people do, especially when it comes to hip hop. And I think some of his records have elements that lend to that.
Right.
And I think as a producer / engineer / artist, I think he knows how to create the perfect landscape for a vocal.
Do you think? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Do you think you can be a successful engineer if you can't convey emotion through mixing? At least musically, of course. I know there's always commercials and movies and all that.
Successful, yeah.
But do you think
known for being an engineer at a certain level? No, I think I make stuff sound sonically good, and I think there's certain things that I do that I've gotten better with over time that can help convey an emotion based on a vibe that I can create sonically. But there's a lot of engineers that make a great living that just know how to make a clean mix.
I would tell my kids 10 times out of 10 go to engineering school before they go out of college on over 6 figures.
There's some that make a good living, bro. I mean, for real.
Almost definitely. I know a guy that all this dude does is mix down audio books, right? He don't even gotta be there when they're reading it or nothing. And I mean, I don't know his pockets like that, but his house is nice. His 4 cars are nice. His boat is nice, and all he does is mix down these damn audio books.
Well, that people don't realize there's so many avenues to do. You ain't just got to be a recording engineer. You know what I mean? You could be the person that just mixes the records. You can be the person that just masters the record. You could be the. I do so much. I wear so many hats. But
do you ever do concerts and stuff?
No.
Nah. Any particular reason?
Most of the time when I get a piece of work, it's like I'm not sitting there trying to coach anybody the dials things, because there's a guy that I know that teaches engineering, but what he really teaches, learning how to use stuff is one thing. Learning how to hear things is a different thing.
Right.
And I think your ears have to be trained a certain way. Sometimes it's not really the gear. You got to know what you're doing with the gear to get a desired sound.
You think it can be trained, or do you have to have a certain ability?
I think you can train somebody's ears. I just think it takes time, and you got to know what to listen for.
Got you.
I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't get. They got to know exactly what to listen for sonically. Not necessarily saying, oh, this frequency is at 120 hertz, but at whatever frequency is, this is what it sounds like.
So it is what it is, not a number.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
We can get caught up saying, cut this, boost this at this many hertz, and how many decibels you're going to reduce here and things of that nature. Man, you don't mix with your eyes, you mix with your ears.
Word.
The tools just do what you need them to do in certain areas in order to get it to sound palatable to your ears.
Yeah, I totally agree. And let's end it with this. So that last thing I'd like to ask you, if you, let's say you're a 10-year-old and you want to start trying to engineer, you want to fool around with production and engineering. What do you think's the best program to do it with?
At 10,
About 10, yeah. Let's say 10, 11, 12. Let's say fourth, fifth, or sixth grade.
you know what? If you're gonna jump in, get them on Pro Tools, man. I mean, it's been around forever. It's not going anywhere. It's still the
That's a lot of
industry.
money to spend on a 10-year-old though.
Well, you start them off with Pro Tools first. Get them an entry level setup. You know what I mean? You can rent Pro Tools for I think $25 a month or something like that now. You
Right,
know what I mean? So there's ways to get in. They used to offer a free version of Pro Tools. I don't know if they do that anymore, but it would give you like the basic plugins, the basic EQ, being able to do a couple of tracks and being able to. I think that would be a great starter, because if they absorb things well, which a lot of young people do now
right,
because they're so quick to grasp technology,
right.
I think that would be a great place to start.
Do you have any recommend the I'm sure there's a lot of YouTube tutorials. Are you aware of any that are particularly good value?
Um, I think there's one that's called Pro Tools Expert that I've listened to a time or two. Lou Diaz, he's a mixing engineer. He's out of Florida. Back in the day, they had a group called the Diaz Brothers. He's done a lot of stuff for Pitbull. He's done Jay-Z, Beyonce.
Did, did they do like comedy stuff too? The Diaz brothers? That sounds so familiar.
I don't know if they did comedy, but he's like one of the goats when it comes to like this engineering thing. I mean, he's a beast, and he has some great tutorials. Um,
Have you ever thought about doing that?
nah,
Man,
I, I don't. I just don't
the,
have the patience to sit down in front of a camera and walk you through every little thing that I do. I don't have that type of patience.
because you if you were doing it without having to explain it, it'd move much quicker, right?
Well, I mean, I could do it as I'm talking. You know what I mean? It's just something that I've never thought about doing.
Got you.
You
Hey,
know what I mean?
yeah.
You
Hey,
know the It's kind of like someone that's a songwriter teaching you how to be a songwriter. I don't know. There's people that have songwriting classes. It's just not my shtick.
hey, yeah, hey, stick with what you know. If it's working, work it, right?
Yeah,
All right, well, shit. Thank you for your time, brother. I really appreciate it. Is there anything or anybody you'd like to shout out before we get out of here?
man. Shoot, man. Shout out, no, number one. Big Facts Podcast. First off, you know what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Thank you.
um, of course, my crew, Bond Productions, my whole production team, the Union Music Group, Firehouse Productions. We got, just the whole movement and the wave that we're working on right now. I'm looking for some epic things to happen next year, and 2020 was a year for really planting a lot of seeds, and I think we'll start to see some of the fruits of our labor next year.
Got you. Well, thank you for your time, and we'll keep checking in.
All right, for sure.